Hi everyone, and welcome back to Farrand Film and my review of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So I went to see this film last night as I record this. So today is Tuesday, the 19th of April, and it was screened in the UK on Monday, the 18th, as part of a Odeon Limitless and I think a Cineworld Unlimited screening as well, which are these kind of early screenings that let people with subscriptions to those cinemas go and see things earlier before the release. So it's my understanding that the release for the UK is this coming Friday, the 22nd of April, as is the same in the US as well. So I feel like a bit of a privilege to get in to do this early. So basically, the film, if you're not aware, essentially features Nicolas Cage playing himself in some sort of meta version of himself. Now, the one thing that I began to think about as soon as I went into this film is this sort of career resurgence that Nicolas Cage has had recently with films like Mandy. I think it was Wally's Wonderland that he did recently, or was it Willy's Wonderland? Either way, I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a big follower of Nicolas Cage's work. I've seen certain films, mainly his output in the 90s and the early noughties. If I'm honest, I think my favourite film of his, which might be controversial, is Gone in 60 Seconds. There's just something about that film that I really like. But I've sort of witnessed the almost fan resurgence of recent years with things like Pig, where people were sort of laboring for him to win an Oscar or at least be nominated for an Oscar for his role in that film. And I've got nothing against that at all. It's just bizarre that all of a sudden there's been this real kind of rise up of Nicolas Cage fans in wanting him to come back and wanting him to do something huge again, with many praise going back to his older works. So this film very much reflects that. And I think from the get go, as soon as this film starts, you realize that it's reflecting this aura, this personality that Cage has embodied recently. And there's a couple of lines in the film where they refer to what they refer to as myth making. So this idea that Nicolas Cage is a myth and everything that gets added about him in the press is all just adding to this myth about him. And there's even a very particular line quite early on, which I liked, in a scene where he is, and I will bring you some more context on this in a second, where he's talking to himself, and himself, or as a younger self, says, "You're not an actor, you're a movie star," and I think that poses a lot about Nicolas Cage's own mindset. So the film starts with Nicolas Cage, and he's driving through Los Angeles, and he goes to meet a screenwriter about a script, and he sort of says, "Oh, I want to read for you," and the screenwriter says, "I'm not going to ask you to read for me," but Nicolas Cage wants to do it. There's nothing more that he would want to do than in public to memorize these lines, to regurgitate these lines to the screenwriter, get the attention on him in a, I don't mean this negatively, in a self-indulgent way. It comes across that his persona is very much like that. He's loud, he's manic, he's crazy, he's self-indulgent, and he just wants to get those things across. Then he drives through the town, he goes home to see his estranged wife, although they're not very estranged, his soon-to-be divorced wife, and his daughter, and you can tell there's like familial issues there. And again, this is supposed to be a real incarnation of Nicolas Cage, albeit turned up a little bit. The film poses the question of Nicolas Cage's own self-indulgence, whether that be true, whether that be fictionalized for the sake of the film, and how that is blocking his own relationships with the people that he loves, but as well, how he balances that with his love and his need to work. There's a couple of things in the film where he says, "I'm an actor, I'm supposed to act. Why are people complaining that I'm making all of these films?" And then at the same time, his money issues, his sort of self-destructive behavior with the amount that he's spending, he's clearly spending more than he's earning. Where does that fit into it? He needs to work because he needs to make money. And then very soon, a offer gets put to him by his agent of attending a birthday party in Mallorca in Spain for, they don't even actually mention who he is. They just sort of say it's a birthday party of this really rich guy and they're offering $1 million. And in the end, Nicolas Cage says, "You know what? Fine, I'll go and do it. I'll take the million and we can deal with stuff there." Because he's got like a 600 grand hotel bill as well that he needs to deal with. So he goes to the birthday party and he meets Javier or Javi Gutierrez. Now, it's not necessarily known too much what Javi does. There's some sort of olive branch business that is kind of in the ether. But the film very well puts across that we are to assume that he has something to do with the kidnapping of the president's daughter that happened earlier at the start of the film. And from there, it's very clear that Javi is an uber fan of Nicolas Cage. The reason why he's willing to pay him so much money for him to fly out and go to his birthday party, I'll be there for a couple of days for his birthday, is because he loves the actor Nicolas Cage. He just wants to spend time with him. He's idolized him over so many years. Now, moving through the film, there's a couple of different things that happen with their relationship. And not to go too much in detail, because I don't really want to spoil anything here, because I think as there's going to be sort of a word towards the end of this review, I urge you to go and watch the film. There's a scene involving LSD, which is a highlight of this film and one of the funniest scenes I've seen in a long time. Now, usually, drug scenes in films don't really do it for me. I feel like there's a lot of times where comedies tend to put in this sort of acid trip scene, or in this case, an LSD trip scene, just to try and make some kind of comedy about the fact that someone's off their head. And the one that pops into my mind, or did pop into my mind after I watched this, was The Nice Guys. And I love The Nice Guys. I think it's a great film. But there's a whole scene in there where Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe are driving through the city high, or I think it might just be Ryan Gosling that's high. And there's a bee that appears in the back of the car. And I just thought, what's the point in this? There's no real point to this. We could have just carried on with the story. This LSD scene adds so much to the film. It's very, very funny. It works extremely well. And for me, it's where the film settled. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't at all sort of put the brakes on and kind of just assume that everyone's along for the ride. This is the point where I was officially won over by the film. I was fully on board with everything else that was going to come my way. And it was the point where I just went, you know what? I'm in for this. I like this now. I began to think about Nicolas Cage, and I began to think about who else could play this role. Could it have been offered to somebody else? Is there another movie star of that era, of that now aura, as I mentioned before, that could have done a role like this? And to be honest, I don't think there is, because ultimately, this is the role that he was made for. It's self-indulgent, it's referential, it's meta, it's egotistical, but at the same time, it's introspective. He has a lot of thinking about the things that he's done in his life and where he wants to go from there. It's manic, it's larger than life. It is Nicolas Cage, all in. There's a very solid cast. The performances all round are great, including Tiffany Haddish's FBI agent. But just to sort of mention somebody other than Nicolas Cage for a second, Pedro Pascal in this film is superbly nuanced as an often bumbling Uber fan, yet intimidating and imposing when the script calls for it, because there's a nice sort of twist that happens, if you will. There's a bit of a turn that happens with his character that I wasn't expecting. And the way that the script is handled, the way that the narrative flows, and the way that the movie sort of goes along is that you're led to believe certain things about his character through the point of view, through the eyes of Nicolas Cage. I was going to say Nicolas Cage's character, but it's not really a character, or is it? No. But all in all, this film is a mere 1 hour and 47 minutes. One of the shortest run times I've seen recently of the film. I was so glad that it was under 2 hours, if I'm honest. And it just absolutely barrels along. It is a pure joy of a film. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious. There are certain points where I was laughing out loud, as were other people in the cinema. There was a general sort of nice atmosphere in the cinema because of what the film was giving off, and because of the joy that was coming off on the screen. I mentioned on the Northman review, even though I hadn't done it at the time, that I'm now going to put up on the bottom of the screen my top 10 rankings of the year. I did this properly this time. I know that right now, sitting at number 2, right in at number 2, is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I enjoyed it that much. It went straight in at number 2. I preferred The Batman. That's why The Batman is still there at number 1. But it's easily one of the best films I've seen so far this year up to now. I think it's going to remain in the top 10. It's going to take a lot for another, what would be 8 films to come and sort of pip it out. But right now, it's sitting pretty at number 2 in my top 10 rankings of the year. I very much enjoyed it. Hopefully, you can get that from this review. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to go too much into it. But I think ultimately, when it opens on Friday, the 22nd of April, in both the UK and the US, I can do nothing more than to urge you to go and watch it, especially if you're into Nicolas Cage, if you're a fan of his work. If I'm honest, I think this made me think about some of the films that I'd not seen of his and the films that I almost want to go back to now. Like I bought Face Off on iTunes last night as a direct result of watching this film because I'd not seen Face Off and I've still not seen it. But I'll go and rectify that now with my iTunes copy. And yeah, if you want a comedy, if you like going to the cinema to have a laugh, go and watch this film. I recommend it wholeheartedly. Thank you very much for listening to this review. If you've not already, go back and watch and listen to my review of The Northman, which I was a bit more snotty on, I would say. I've had some interesting comments back on that. Thank you for everyone who's commented on that video. It's been intriguing to see where other people's opinions line up. I know that's still waiting for its US release this coming Friday too. And I don't know when the next review will be. I think, if I'm honest, it's probably going to be Doctor Strange, unless I manage to go and see anything before that. But I'm hoping to do a bit of a spoiler review of that. You'll notice on the YouTube channel, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you're paying attention to the YouTube channel, that I'm uploading a lot of past content, a lot of podcasts that we've already had in the bag, that I am, where I can, including the videos for, because I'll be honest, I recorded them on Zoom a while ago for some episodes. So some episodes I've still got the recordings of, and if I have, I'll stick those videos on. So the Star Wars ones, I've all got the video of me, Ollie, and Holly chatting. The Harry Potter ones that are going on, I've got the video of me and Tom Beasley. My interview ones that are going up with Kirby McClure, the director of Spaghetti Junction, and Tiago Daldat and Kirk Moody from Where Is Nancy, and Anne Olsen for Power Rangers. They've all got the videos on. I'm probably going to upload some more that are probably just audio to YouTube, just for the sake of getting some content out there. And one thing that I'm doing a little bit differently that is going to go out at the end of this week is a Dexter New Blood review. Now, I know that Dexter's a TV series, but I've recently bought the Steelbook, and I thought that would be a good opportunity for me to unbox it, because everyone loves an unboxing apparently, and give you a bit of a review of that season as well and talk about something a little bit differently than just films. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I hope you go and watch The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. If you do, let me know what you think about it. By all means, leave a comment below, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Subscribe to the podcast. It's still going, it's still kicking. And yeah, that was a good one, I think, for me. And I'm hoping that it's still going to be in my top 10 at the end of the year. So, in the meantime, you can help support Farrand on Film by going over to our sponsor, Offworld Tees, and using the code Farrand, that's FARRAND, for 15% off your order. Follow me on Twitter at Adam Farrand and at Farrand on Film. Go back and watch all of our other videos on YouTube. Go back and listen to our podcasts. Like, subscribe, do all that kind of good stuff. And stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you next time.